One Saturday afternoon, 7 years ago, I went to speak to a 92-year-old woman about her childhood and youth on the island of Rhodes, where she grew up in a storied Sephardic Jewish community that until 1944, when the entire community was deported to Auschwitz, had lived on the island in relative peace for nearly half a millennium. Her name was Stella Levi, and I had no idea that this would turn out to be the first of 100 Saturdays I would spend in her company.
Michael!
Stella!
Come stai?
Bene, tu? Posso?
Vieni.
Stella began by telling me about her maternal grandmother, who was one of several healers in the Juderia, as the neighborhood where she grew up was known. When a young girl suffered from anxiety, Stella's grandmother would cure her with an encerradura. She put her to bed for an entire week, fed her broth, and prayed by circling her face with a handful of mumia, the ashes of Jewish saints, purportedly. Did anyone ever perform an encerradura on you?
No, certainly not. I was not that kind of a woman.
What kind of young woman were you then? Stella was 92 when she began to answer that question, and the thousands of others that followed, and 98 when she finished. She told me stories in Turkish,
Haydi, tra il panesico.
French,
C'est le grand le stucri qui passe, il passerà.
Italian,
Perché c'era tanta gente, sembrava insomma che tutti siamo gli stessi, ma no.
Judeo-Spanish, of course,
Per esempio, ecco per dire, los buenos de vosotros.
and English.
What I think is really that if you want, you can do many things even at 100.
And she sang songs.
De las altas mares.
Many songs.
En passant par la Lorraine avec mes sabots de amor, perché mi fa ricordare mia mamma.
Stella grew up in a world in transition from those grandmothers with their cures on the one hand, and on the other modern-thinking young folk who debated and laughed at the Marxes, Karl and Groucho, and discussed Freud, Proust, and the fascist government that ruled over them all. This is the kind of girl Stella was. At 14, she'd packed a suitcase and put it at the foot of her bed. "Are you running away?" her mother asked her.
No, mother, no, I'm going to university in Italy. It's my dream.
Stella didn't get to fulfill that dream. In the fall of 1938, Mussolini issued a series of racial laws against the Jews that felt like a personal assault on Stella, who was kicked out, first from high school and then, after the Germans seized the island, from her home. On July 23, 1944, she and the rest of her community, more than 1,700 people in all, were deported to Auschwitz, where 90% of them were murdered as soon as they arrived. It was the longest of all the deportations, measured by geography or time. I waited a long time to hear what happened afterward, because Stella was hesitant to revisit this part of her life, but eventually she told me these stories too. Stella was a very determined young woman, full of grit, resourcefulness, and drive. She was also lucky. About suerte, luck, she told me,
Every survivor has a moment, 2 moments, 10 moments of incredible luck.
the story of how Stella survived the camps and then rebuilt her life after she was liberated, and how she came to understand the arc of her life in the decades since, took her almost 7 years to finish telling me. In his essay, The Storyteller, Walter Benjamin writes that memory weaves the net that all stories ultimately form together. In each of the greatest storytellers, he says, lives a Scheherazade whose gift is his ability to recount his life. That weaver, that Scheherazade, is the Stella I have been so lucky to know.